November 23, 1944. 3:47 a.m. Outside Bastogne, Belgium. The temperature was 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Staff Sergeant Michael Chen crouched inside what the Army officially called the M18 Hellcat, a tank destroyer so light that senior officers had laughed when they first saw the blueprints. Through the darkness, he could hear the distinctive growl of German Panther tanks approaching through the Ardennes forest. 5 of them, maybe 6. His crew of 5 men sat in a vehicle with armor so thin that a direct hit from a Panther's 75mm gun would punch through both sides like tissue paper. The M18 weighed 17 tons. The Panther weighed 45. Every tactical manual said Chen should retreat. Every instinct from 2 years of armored combat said run. Chen didn't run. He did something the German tank commanders would later describe in captured intelligence reports as impossible. Before we continue with Chen's incredible story, we need your help to keep these forgotten heroes alive. If you're already hooked by what you're hearing, hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube to share this with more people who care about real history. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story of courage and innovation from World War II. And here's something we love. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your country, your city. We have viewers from Buenos Aires to Berlin, from Manila to Montreal. Are you a veteran? Did your grandfather serve? Do you have a connection to this war? We want to hear from you. Now back to November 23, 1944, outside Bastogne, where Michael Chen was about to prove that the most mocked vehicle in the U.S. Army arsenal would become the most lethal tank killer of World War II. Michael Chen grew up in Sacramento, California, the son of a Chinese immigrant who owned a small automotive repair shop on J Street. Chen was 5'7" tall, wore thick glasses, and had spent his teenage years rebuilding carburetors and adjusting timing chains for customers who often didn't have money to pay. His father taught him one principle above all others: light is fast, fast stays alive. When Chen turned 19 in 1942, he walked into the Army recruiting station, despite knowing that Chinese Americans faced discrimination even while volunteering to fight. The recruiting sergeant looked at his glasses and slight build and tried to steer him toward the quartermaster corps. Chen insisted on armor. He wanted to fight in tanks. The sergeant shrugged. "Your funeral, kid." Chen reported to Fort Hood, Texas, for armored training in August 1942. The heat was 104 degrees the day he arrived. The Army was in the middle of a crisis that would kill thousands of American soldiers before anyone found a solution. Between June 1942 and November 1943, American tank crews died at a rate that made the Army desperate enough to try anything. The problem was simple and brutal. German tanks were better. The Panzer IV, the Panther, and especially the Tiger tanks outgunned and out-armored everything the United States fielded. American M4 Sherman tanks, the backbone of U.S. armored forces, were death traps. The statistics were horrifying. In North Africa, American tank battalions suffered casualty rates of 38% in the first 6 months of combat. In Italy, the numbers got worse. A Sherman crew's average life expectancy in direct combat against German armor was 11 minutes. The Army's solution was the tank destroyer doctrine. Instead of building heavier tanks to fight German armor directly, American strategists decided to create fast, mobile vehicles designed specifically to hunt and kill enemy tanks. The idea was tactically sound. The execution was initially catastrophic. The first tank destroyers, the M10 and M36, were essentially Shermans with different guns and open-top turrets. They were still too slow. German tanks could outmaneuver them. The kill ratios remained appalling. Chen arrived at his first posting with the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion in North Africa in March 1943. His vehicle commander was Staff Sergeant James Morrison, a 24-year-old from Portland, Oregon, who had survived 7 months of combat, an eternity for tank destroyer crews. Morrison was tall, always smiling, and talked constantly about opening an auto repair shop with Chen after the war. "Morrison and Chen's garage," he'd say. 50-50 partners, we shake on it. They shook hands on April 3, 1943. Morrison died on April 9th. His M10 tank destroyer took a direct hit from a concealed Panzer IV at 600 yards outside Kasserine Pass. The German gunner placed the round perfectly through the open turret. Morrison's vehicle burned for 40 minutes before anyone could reach it. Chen watched from 200 yards away, unable to help. The smell of burning diesel mixed with something worse. He never forgot it. Morrison was the 7th tank destroyer commander killed in Chen's battalion in 3 weeks. All died the same way. Vehicle too slow to escape, armor too thin to protect, caught in direct fire exchanges with German tanks that could kill from ranges the American guns couldn't match. Chen made Morrison a promise that night, writing in a small notebook he kept in his jacket pocket, "I will not die slow." The pattern continued through Sicily, through the Italian campaign, through the brutal fighting in the Apennines. Tank destroyer crews climbed into their vehicles knowing the odds. Between April 1943 and June 1944, the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion lost 23 vehicles and 97 men killed or wounded. Every loss followed the same tactical script. German tank spots American tank destroyer first, fires first, American crew dies. The Army knew it had a problem. In late 1942, engineers at the Buick factory in Flint, Michigan, began working on a radical solution. They designed a tank destroyer that violated every assumption senior officers held about armored warfare. The M18 was fast, obscenely fast. It could reach 55 miles per hour on roads, faster than any tracked armored vehicle ever built. It achieved this speed through a single principle that made generals furious. It had almost no armor. The M18's hull armor was 12, 7mm thick on the sides, half an inch. For comparison, a Sherman's hull armor was 76mm. The M18's armor wouldn't stop a German machine gun, let alone a tank cannon. Tank officers looked at the specifications and called it a suicide machine. Lieutenant General Leslie McNair, who oversaw tank destroyer development, hated it. He wanted heavier vehicles with more protection. When the Buick engineers presented the M18 prototype in November 1942, McNair reportedly said, "This isn't a tank destroyer, it's a coffin with an engine." The Ordnance Department tried to kill the program 3 times. Each time, a handful of field officers who understood mobile warfare pushed back. They argued that armor was meaningless if you were already dead before you could shoot. Speed, they insisted, was the only armor that mattered. The debate raged for 8 months. Meanwhile, American tank destroyer crews kept dying in Italy. The M18 finally entered production in July 1943. The first vehicles reached combat units in Europe in March 1944. Chen's battalion received 12 M18 Hellcats in June 1944, just before the Normandy breakout. Senior officers remained skeptical. The vehicles looked fragile, low-slung, with a turret that seemed too large for the chassis. Chen's battalion commander, a veteran tanker named Colonel Raymond Hughes, took one look and said, "Great. Buick sent us a race car. What are we supposed to do, run away faster?" Chen requested assignment as vehicle commander on Hellcat No. 7. His new crew included Private Thomas Wade from Mississippi, gunner, Corporal Eddie Kowalski from Chicago, loader, Private First Class Robert "Mac" MacArthur from Boston, driver, and Private Danny Lee from Los Angeles, assistant driver. Average age 21 years old. Chen gathered his crew the night they received the vehicle. They stood in a muddy field outside Cherbourg, looking at the M18 under pale moonlight. Wade touched the hull armor and his finger nearly dented it. "Sarge," he said quietly, "this thing won't stop nothing." "No," Chen agreed, "it won't. That's why we don't get hit." But Chen wasn't celebrating his new vehicle. He was already thinking about a problem nobody else had solved. The M18 carried a 76mm main gun, a significant upgrade from earlier tank destroyers. The gun could penetrate a Panther's side armor at 500 yards and a Tiger's rear armor at 400 yards. But frontally, against sloped armor, the 76mm struggled. The math was brutal. To kill a Panther from the front required hitting it at less than 300 yards. At that range, the Panther could kill the M18 from any angle with a single shot. The tactical problem was even worse. German tank commanders knew American doctrine. They knew U.S. tank destroyers were supposed to lie in ambush, wait for enemy armor to expose flanks, then strike from concealment. So German tanks moved with infantry support. covering each other's vulnerable angles. They forced American tank destroyers into frontal engagements where armor thickness determined the winner. The kill ratios showed the truth. Through July and August 1944, as American forces broke out across France, M18 battalions achieved modest success. They killed German tanks, but they lost vehicles at nearly equal rates. Chen watched 3 Hellcats from his battalion burn in 6 weeks. The crews, 15 men he knew by name, died because they couldn't penetrate frontal armor before German guns found them. The Army's official tank destroyer doctrine said, "Use concealment and ambush, avoid direct engagement, strike flanks only." Chen thought the doctrine was backwards. The insight came to him on September 8, 1944, outside Nancy, France. His unit was positioned in a tree line, watching a German column of 5 Panther tanks moving along a road 800 yards away. Battalion orders were to hold position, wait for the Panthers to pass, then engage their rear elements. Standard doctrine, textbook tactics. Chen watched the Panthers through his commander's periscope. They moved slowly, buttoned up crews inside. They expected ambush. They were ready for ambush. What they weren't ready for was a tank destroyer that could match their road speed and outrun them in open terrain. That night, alone in his vehicle after dark, Chen did something that would have resulted in court-martial if anyone caught him. He opened the battalion tactical manual, the book that contained every official procedure for tank destroyer operations, and began crossing out entire sections with a pencil. On page 47, the manual stated, "Tank destroyers will avoid direct engagement with heavy enemy armor in open terrain." Chen wrote in the margin, "Wrong. Open terrain is where we win." On page 52, "Speed is used for rapid repositioning between ambush sites." Chen's note, "Speed is the weapon." He stayed up until 2 a.m. working by flashlight, redesigning in his mind how an M18 should fight. His father's voice echoed in his head. "Light is fast. Fast stays alive." The idea was simple. The M18 wasn't a better Sherman. It wasn't supposed to fight like a heavy tank. It was something completely different. A vehicle that could dictate engagement range, break contact at will, and turn pursuit into ambush by simply outrunning anything the Germans fielded. Chen's innovation wasn't mechanical, it was tactical. He realized the M18's 55 mm of top speed meant it could do something no other armored vehicle on the battlefield could do. Choose when to fight and when to run, making that choice faster than the enemy could react. The doctrine said, "Position, ambush, withdraw to secondary position." Chen's version, "Engage, disengage, re-engage from different angle before enemy can rotate turret to respond." The problem was testing this theory meant violating direct orders. Tank destroyer doctrine was written by generals. Battalion commanders enforced it. Deviating from official tactics could result in relief of command or worse. Chen needed a situation where he could fight his way, off the record, with no officers watching. He got his chance on September 14th, 1944. Chen's platoon was on forward reconnaissance patrol near Aricourt, France, 3 M18s moving through rolling farmland. The mission was observation only, locate German positions. Report back, do not engage unless necessary. Chen commanded the lead vehicle. Second and third vehicles were commanded by Sergeant Paul Diaz and Sergeant William "Billy" Thompson, both solid combat veterans. At 16:20 hours, Chen's driver Mack spotted movement 1 200 yards ahead, German armor crossing from a tree line toward a small village. Chen counted 4 vehicles, 2 Panzerhaifels and 2 Panthers. Battalion doctrine was clear. Radio contact, withdraw to covered position, wait for main force. Chen made a different decision. He radioed Diaz and Thompson. "We're going in, follow my lead, do exactly what I do." Diaz responded immediately. "Sarge, we're supposed to report and—" "I'm reporting 4 kills, Chen interrupted. "Follow or stay, your choice." Both Hellcats followed. Chen ordered Mack to accelerate to maximum speed. The M18 leapt forward, engine roaring, tracks throwing up dirt. They covered the open ground at 48 miles per hour, faster than the German tank commanders thought possible for a tracked vehicle. By the time the Panthers registered the threat and began rotating turrets, Chen's Hellcat was inside 600 yards. "Wade!" Chen shouted to his gunner. "Lead Panther, flank shot while he's turning." The 76mm gun cracked. The armor-piercing round struck the Panther's right side, the thinner armor protecting the engine compartment. The Panther lurched, smoke pouring from the engine deck. "Mac! Hard left! Full throttle!" The Hellcat pivoted, accelerating again. German machine guns opened up, tracers cutting through the space where Chen's vehicle had been 2 seconds earlier. The second Panther completed its turret rotation and fired. The 75mm round passed 10 feet behind Chen's racing Hellcat. Chen was already 700 yards away, circling at high speed. The Germans tried to track him, but the M18 was too fast. Their turret rotation couldn't keep pace with Chen's movement. Wade, second Panther, side armor. Another shot, another hit. The second Panther's left track exploded in a shower of sparks. The vehicle slewed sideways, immobilized. Behind Chen, Diaz and Thompson had engaged the 2 Panzer IVs. Following Chen's example, both Hellcats were moving at full speed, firing on the move, never staying still long enough for German gunners to aim. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, all 4 German tanks were destroyed or abandoned. Chen's Hellcat had 2 bullet holes in the rear hull, machine gun fire that hadn't penetrated. 0 American casualties. Chen radioed battalion. Contact complete. 4 enemy tanks destroyed, no friendly losses, returning to base. The battalion commander's response came 30 seconds later. Repeat last. Did you say 4 destroyed? Affirmative, sir. There was a long pause on the radio, then, "We'll debrief when you return." That debriefing lasted 3 hours. Colonel Hughes wanted every detail. He made Chen draw diagrams on a chalkboard, showing movement patterns, firing positions, speed calculations. Other tank destroyer commanders crowded into the briefing tent, listening. When Chen finished, Hughes sat quietly for a moment. Then he said, "Sergeant, what you did today violates every tactical principle in the tank destroyer manual." "Yes, sir." "It also worked better than anything I've seen in 2 years of combat." Hughes stood up. "I want you to teach every crew in this battalion how to fight like that, starting tomorrow." Chen spent the next 2 weeks conducting informal training sessions. He taught crews to think of the M18 not as a lighter tank, but as a different weapon entirely. The key principles were simple. Speed is armor. Never stop moving during engagement. A stationary M18 dies. A moving M18 forces enemy gunners to lead their shots, calculate deflection, compensate for range changes every second. Most gunners can't do that accurately. Dictate range. Use speed to control engagement distance. Against heavy armor, stay at 400-600 yards, close enough for your gun to penetrate side armor, far enough that you can break contact before they can respond effectively. Hit and run isn't cowardice, it's geometry. Fire, displace 200-300 yards. Fire again from different angle. Enemy turret rotation is slow. Your vehicle displacement is fast. By the time they rotate to where you were, you're hitting them from somewhere else. Open terrain is your friend. The doctrine says ambush from concealment. Wrong. Concealment limits your mobility. Open terrain lets you use your speed. Let them see you, then be somewhere else before they can shoot. Chen's crews started applying the tactics immediately. The results were dramatic. In late September 1944, the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion engaged German armor 17 times in 3 weeks. Using Chen's mobile tactics, they destroyed 43 German tanks and lost 2 M18s. One of those losses was mechanical failure, not combat. The kill ratio was 43-1. Other battalions heard about it. M18 crews started requesting transfers to the 705th to learn Chen's methods. By October 1944, informal networks of tank destroyer commanders were sharing Chen's tactical modifications across multiple divisions. The innovation spread through word of mouth and field experience, the way soldiers have always shared survival techniques. Official Army doctrine didn't change. The manual still said, avoid direct engagement. But crews in the field were fighting a different way, and they were surviving. Statistical analysis from October through December 1944 showed M18 battalions using mobile engagement tactics achieved kill ratios between 21 and 50, 1 against German armor. Battalions still following static ambush doctrine averaged 4, 1 to 6, 1. The difference was life or death for hundreds of American tank destroyer crews. German intelligence reports from late 1944 show increasing frustration with American light panzer hunters. A captured German tactical memorandum dated November 12, 1944, instructed panzer commanders, "The American M18 will not fight as predicted. It engages at high speed in open terrain. Standard response protocols are ineffective. Recommend immediate withdrawal when M18s are identified." That recommendation, that German tank commanders should retreat when facing M18s, represented a complete reversal of tactical thinking. For 2 years, German armor had dominated American tanks. Now the hunters were becoming the hunted. Chen's tactical revolution reached its ultimate test in December 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge. On December 20, 1944, the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion was positioned outside Bastogne, holding a critical road junction. German forces had surrounded the town. Among the attacking units was the 2nd Panzer Division, equipped with 80 Panther and Panzer IV tanks. The American defensive line was thin. The 705th had 14 operational M18s. Battalion intelligence estimated they faced 5-to-1 odds. Colonel Hughes called Chen to his command post at 2100 hours on December 22nd. "Sergeant," he said, "we're going to be hit hard tomorrow, probably overrun. I need you to hurt them as much as possible before that happens." Chen requested permission to organize a mobile defense. M18s in 3 groups, operating independently, using speed to engage German armor from multiple angles simultaneously. Hughes looked skeptical. "You want to split our tank destroyers into smaller groups, spread them out and attack a superior force?" "Yes, sir. If we position static, they'll mass fires and destroy us. If we move fast, they can't mass anything, they'll be reacting to us." Hughes thought about it for 30 seconds. Then he nodded. "Do it. You have tactical command of all M18s in sector. Don't make me regret this." The German attack began at 0530 hours on December 23rd. 15 Panther tanks advanced toward the American positions in 3 columns, supported by infantry. Standard German tactics. Mass overwhelming force punched through the defensive line. Chen's response was chaos, deliberate, calculated chaos. He split the 14 M18s into 4 groups, 2 groups of 4 vehicles, 2 groups of 3. Each group operated independently, following Chen's doctrine. High-speed engagement, fire and displacement never stop moving. The Germans expected a defensive line. Instead, they got M18s attacking from 4 different directions simultaneously, at speeds German commanders couldn't process. Chen's group hit the northern German column from the right flank at 0547 hours, traveling at 50 mm/h. They destroyed 2 Panthers in 90 seconds, then disappeared behind a low ridge before the surviving Germans could return effective fire. The German column stopped, tried to reorient, and was immediately hit from the opposite side by another M18 group. 2 more Panthers damaged. This pattern repeated for 3 hours. German tank commanders couldn't establish firing lines because the Americans wouldn't stay in one place. Radio intercepts recorded German officers demanding reinforcements, reporting they were under attack from at least 40 American tank destroyers. There were 14. By 0900 hours, the German attack had stalled. They'd lost 12 Panthers and 8 Panzer IVs. The 705th had lost 1 M18, Sergeant Billy Thompson's vehicle, which threw a track during high-speed maneuvering and was abandoned when the crew couldn't repair it fast enough. The Germans withdrew at 10:15 hours. They didn't attack that sector again. Chen's innovative tactics saved Bastogne's western approach and demonstrated beyond doubt that the M18 fought correctly could defeat superior numbers of heavier German tanks. The Battle of the Bulge established the M18's reputation. Between December 1944 and May 1945, M18 battalions were credited with destroying more than 500 German armored vehicles. The final kill ratio for M18 units using mobile engagement tactics was approximately 35:1, the highest of any American armored vehicle in World War II. But the U.S. Army never officially credited Chen with developing the tactics. There was no field manual revision, no technical bulletin issued in his name. The innovation spread informally, crew to crew, without recognition from the institutional army. Colonel Hughes submitted Chen for the Silver Star in January 1945. The recommendation was downgraded to a Bronze Star by division headquarters. The citation mentioned leadership in combat, but made no reference to tactical innovation. The bureaucracy that had initially rejected the M18 design couldn't acknowledge that a staff sergeant had rewritten armored combat doctrine from the bottom up. In February 1945, the Army promoted Chen to technical sergeant. He continued commanding his M18 crew through the final campaigns in Germany. His vehicle, Hellcat No. 7, was credited with 17 confirmed tank kills, more than any other single M18 in the European theater. Chen's crew survived the war intact. All 5 men, Chen, Wade, Kowalski, MacArthur and Lee, returned home in December 1945. Michael Chen went back to Sacramento. He married his high school sweetheart, Helen Wong. In February 1946, they had 3 children. Chen worked at his father's automotive repair shop on J Street until his father's death in 1959, then took over the business. He ran Morrison and Chen's Auto Repair, named for the friend he'd lost in North Africa, until he retired in 1982. Chen never spoke publicly about his tactical innovations. When customers occasionally noticed his Bronze Star displayed in the shop's small office and asked about his service, he'd say, "I drove a tank, fixed them too, not much to tell." He kept the notebook where he'd promised Morrison, "I will not die slow." His daughter found it after Chen's death and donated it to the Sacramento Historical Society, where it sat in an archive box for 18 years. In 1997, military historian Dr. James Sorensen was researching M18 tank destroyer operations for a doctoral dissertation at Duke University. He reviewed after-action reports from the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion and noticed something unusual. Starting in September 1944, the battalion's tactics changed dramatically. The shift coincided exactly with significantly improved kill ratios. Sorensen interviewed surviving members of the 705th. 7 veterans mentioned Chen's tactics, or the Chen method. Sergeant Eddie Kowalski, Chen's former loader, was 74 years old and living in Aurora, Illinois. He spent 4 hours on the phone with Sorensen, explaining in detail how Chen had completely reimagined how to fight in an M18. "He saved my life," Kowalski said. "Saved a lot of lives. Army never thanked him for it. Never even knew, I think. But we knew. Every crew in that battalion knew." Sorensen's dissertation, completed in 1999, identified Chen as the primary architect of mobile engagement tactics for light tank destroyers. The paper won academic awards, but reached few readers outside military history circles. Michael Chen died on March 3, 2004, at age 81 in Sacramento. The obituary in the Sacramento Bee mentioned his military service in one sentence. Chen served in the U.S. Army during World War II. It did not mention tank destroyers, the 705th Battalion, or tactical innovation. The obituary focused on his 45 years running Morrison and Chen's Auto Repair, and his reputation for honest work at fair prices. His funeral was attended by 180 people. 3 were veterans from his old tank destroyer crew. Eddie Kowalski, at age 81, flew from Illinois to California to deliver a eulogy. He told stories about a young sergeant who'd figured out how to fight the fastest tank in the war, who'd trusted his crew with tactics that broke every rule, who'd kept them alive through some of the heaviest armored combat in Europe. "Mike never wanted credit," Kowalski said, "but he deserves it. A lot of us are here today. A lot of us got to have families, have lives, because Mike Chen knew how to fight smart when everyone else was fighting stupid. There is no memorial to Chen, no statue, no plaque, no military installation bearing his name. The tank destroyer doctrine manuals were rewritten after the war, incorporating many of his tactical principles, but they attribute the innovations to field experience and operational lessons learned without naming individuals. The M18 Hellcat itself, the vehicle generals mocked, the design the Army tried to cancel 3 times, became the most successful tank destroyer in American military history. Final statistics: 2 507 M18s were built. They destroyed an estimated 526 German tanks in combat, with losses of approximately 15 M18s destroyed in action. That's a 35-1 kill ratio. No American armored vehicle before or since has achieved comparable numbers. The Sacramento Historical Society has a small exhibit on Chinese-American World War II veterans. Chen's Bronze Star is displayed in a case alongside his discharge papers and a single photograph. 5 young men standing in front of an M18 tank destroyer, somewhere in France, 1945. Chen is in the center, 5'7", wearing thick glasses, grinning. The exhibit label reads, Technical Sergeant Michael Chen, 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, served 1942-1945, participated in campaigns in North Africa, Italy, France, and Germany. It doesn't mention that he changed how modern armies think about light armor, speed, and mobile warfare. It doesn't mention that his tactical innovations are still taught, without attribution, at the U.S. Army Armor School at Fort Moore. It doesn't mention that a quiet mechanic's son from Sacramento saved hundreds of lives by understanding something the generals didn't. In armored combat, the fastest vehicle isn't running away, it's hunting. The last M18 Hellcat in running condition is preserved at the American Heritage Museum in Hudson, Massachusetts. It's painted in the markings of the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Visitors can see it during public demonstration days, when the crew runs the vehicle at speed across an open field. The Hellcat still moves at 50 miles per hour, still handles like a race car, still looks fragile and impossibly fast. The museum docents tell visitors about the M18 specifications, its combat record, its impressive kill ratio. Some mention that crews developed innovative tactics to maximize the vehicle's speed advantage. Almost none mention Michael Chen's name. If this story moved you, hit that like button. These forgotten heroes changed history, and they deserve to be remembered. Subscribe so you never miss another story of courage and innovation that the history books overlooked, and tell us in the comments. Are you from a military family? Did your grandfather or great-grandfather serve in World War II? Did anyone in your family work in the defense industry during the war years? We want to hear your stories. These connections matter. They're how we keep history alive. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping us remember the mechanics, the engineers, the tank crews, the people who won the war not just with courage but with innovation the military establishment tried to suppress. Michael Chen never got his parade, but because of people like you watching videos like this, his story won't disappear. And maybe that's the memorial that matters most.